Hey, yes, yes. Welcome again to the Before Christmas episode of the Crossover Podcast, episode 10. Yes, indeed. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody. Have a good and safe holiday. Once again, I'm back with some of the fellas to discuss some sports topics and some pop culture topics once again. So, why don't y'all go ahead and introduce yourselves and we can work down the line? Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, how you doing? This is Matt. First of all, saying Merry Christmas to everyone. Hope everyone's Christmas is going well so far, and hope y'all did y'all Christmas shopping because I did not do a look of it. So, again, Merry Christmas, and hope y'all everybody and their mom has a Happy New Year.
What's up, everybody? Um, yeah, man, I want to say, I guess, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody. I'm like you, man. I ain't do none of. I did a little bit of my Christmas shopping earlier today, but other than that, I'm real behind. And it's Christmas Eve is it's tomorrow, so I'm gonna have to figure out how I can get all my Christmas shopping done in one night. Uh, but yeah, Merry Christmas, go Eagles, and let's talk about some sports.
Yes, yes, amen. Yes, yes. I got most of my shopping done. Boys, Amazon is life. Amazon was clutch. Saved me some hassle. So definitely, I recommend Amazon. But yeah, we're gonna talk about these topics real quick. Um, yeah. So we're gonna start with a topic that's near and dear to our hearts. We're gonna start with the crossover episode. We're gonna have some people coming in, joining us. Can't wait for that. We got first timers up in here. Kennan's gonna join us as well. But we're gonna lead off with crossover hot takes, and the one I was gonna start off with a different one, with a more sports related one, but I guess I'll save that for later. We got to start with our president elect again. Um, yeah, I know he's been dominating the hot takes lately, but he does a lot of stuff that's questionable. So, did y'all see his tweet? He tweeted something about how America needs to increase the nuclear capacity. So, yeah, let's start talking with that. Go ahead, Matt. What are your thoughts? Lead off, and we can work down the line.
Why you give this man nuclear codes? I mean, it's like giving a 5-year-old the remote control to all the channels without the con- parental blocking. I mean, look. First of all, why? Why shows just took his Twitter account and just deactivated it altogether. I mean, my thing is simply this. I haven't read a whole lot on it, but he's making my point when I say this man is unfit to be president so far. He's not even sworn in yet. And I haven't heard the whole story yet, but from what I'm hearing, it's as a citizen, you know, it worries me. And you worry about having more of a nuclear presence. I'm like, no, you people already think you're in bed with Russia already. People think that you and Russia are like, best buddies and stuff like that. And it's just no. There's too much going on involved. There's too much going on. I can't really go deep into it at this point because I really don't know. But it the whole situation sounds fishy to me. And it's like, and it also to me, this is how I feel. I could be wrong. It feels like we're going back to the Cold War all over again, and not recognizing that the America that we are living in right now. I mean, it's not the climate's too raw. It's too raw, and now you want to do stuff with Russia. I don't know. It just sounds fishy to me. That's all I have to say on that one.
Go ahead, Trey.
Well, see, Donald Trump is an intriguing man. And Matt is right. He's not fit to be president. And he hasn't even been sworn in, just like you said, Matt. He hasn't even been sworn in yet, and he clearly is not fit to be president. And I agree. Somebody needs to get rid of his Twitter account, or at least, you know, let him know. Okay, you got to tone it down. But the funny thing is about it, we shouldn't be surprised about what we're seeing on his Twitter account. I mean, you go back to when he was, during the campaign. I mean, maybe not some of the same things he was saying on Twitter, but some of these outrageous things that he says he says outrageous things during his campaign, and then he goes and says outrageous things on Twitter. But it's interesting because he's acting like a teenager, or he's acting like a young. It reminds me of sometimes how social media can kind of be what's the word I want to use? It can hurt young professional athletes. They go on social media and say something that may not be very controversial, that might not be good PR. And that's the thing. Donald Trump doesn't understand the idea of public relations. So he goes out on Twitter and puts up things that are just terrible in terms of PR. And so whoever his PR person is, based on how he's been picking his cabinet and everything, maybe his PR person is in agreement with some of the stuff he's putting on Twitter. But the idea of the United States furthering their nuclear proliferation, I believe we've stopped, or at least it's slowed down tremendously within the last 10 or 15 years. Last time we did anything in terms of nuclear proliferation, the idea that you have nukes, okay, it gives you some sort of leverage in war. It gives you leverage in terms of maybe potentially threatening a country or stopping a country from doing something. At the same time, nukes are devastating weapons. They don't just it's not like they just kill a few people or destroy a few houses. They do extreme damage. And the idea that he believes that we need to continue nuclear proliferation. I'm looking at an article in The Guardian. It says, "Let it be an arms race." I don't think we want that happening. I don't think we want countries like, I don't think we need to start proliferating more nukes. And then, once you open up that can of worms where we're, continuing to proliferate nuclear weapons, then other countries will start wanting to do it in the UN. Like you said, Matt, we're basically in bed, or at least Donald Trump is basically in bed with Russia and Putin. And they're clearly for nuclear proliferation. They're one in terms of number of nuclear weapons. I think they're second to us. So I think Donald Trump just needs to shut up. In terms of what he's saying on Twitter, some of the the funny thing is, I was watching a video the other day, and it was Ray Lewis on it was on ESPN or something. And after he got elected, Ray Lewis actually, there was a meeting with some professional athletes, some important people in the world, sat down and talked with Donald Trump. And Ray Lewis realized, one of the things he realized was that Donald Trump knows how controversial and how crazy some of the things he's saying. So I think what needs to be done is we've got to. Donald Trump has to realize, okay, as president, I can't say these things. Maybe this is my personal opinion, but as president of the United States, and he said it himself, I will. He said, I'm going to be the president for the whole United States. He's not showing that he's going to do that. He's because on Twitter and on his campaign, he's spitting out his personal opinion. And as the president, you have to be the president. In a democratic republic, you have to be the president for all people, and you have to. You can't enforce in terms of lawmaking and where we go in terms of war and nuclear proliferation. You can't just continue to put in your own. You can't enforce your own personal opinions as law.
True story. My thoughts is this. I agree with Trey and Matt that Donald Trump, man, it needs to be a public service announcement. He needs to have his Twitter banned from him. Like, no one should have access to that Twitter except for the White House social media person. Like, that Twitter just needs to permanently be banned because he's using and abusing his power. Like, he needs to stop. Like, it was enough. It was enough that we actually let him skate because I didn't cover the fact that he's been using his Twitter to basically threaten people like Bowie and Lockheed Martin and all these people to make the stuff cheaper and causing their stocks to ebb and flow because he doesn't like it, and he has all these conflicts of interest. It's like he really doesn't want to be president. It's like he's trying to make us impeach him or something. Like, not only is he in there with Russia, we have the only people with more nukes than us right now is Russia. They have 7,000. We have 6,935. So we basically have 7,000. But President Obama slowed down our nuclear arms race because he saw, like most logical people, that we're spending all this money on nukes and we don't really need it. We're not in a nuclear war right now with any nuclear power. And it's just like Donald Trump comes in and says, listen, I'm a loose cannon. I'm going to do what I want. I don't care. I got both houses of Congress. I can do what I want. And I'm just like, no, you can't be this brazen. Like, you can get away with that when you're not the president. But you can't be this brazen talking about some America needs to get all the nukes because the world can't handle it. Dog, that's dictator talk. You are the president of the United States. You are not a dictator. You weren't even elected by popular vote. You were elected by the Electoral College, which is something we about to get into about the Electoral College. But you just need to calm down, sit down, and just be quiet until January 20th when you're actually president, because he literally looked scared after he talked to Obama. I don't know what Obama said to him. He probably said something like, you don't want this job. You're 69. It's going to kill you. I don't know what he said, but Trump literally looked shook. If you look at the photos that he took with Obama, he literally looked scared. Like, President Obama basically told him, like, here's everything that I've had to deal with. Good luck, Mr. Millionaire. You think you're going to fix these problems? Go ahead. Like, I just don't know. It's like, and he's just creating new fire hose for Barack Obama to calm down. And it's 2 days before Christmas. Give the man a break. He can't put out all these fires before January 20th. He just needs to put his Twitter down. I say it all the time. It's not a political podcast. It's just that we got a president that don't know how to deal with public affairs. So we talk about him a lot. But he just needs to stop. He really does. We can get into, since we're on there anyway, we can talk about the Electoral College. Yeah, go ahead, y'all. What y'all think? Y'all think we should get rid of the Electoral College? You could also add in some final thoughts on Donald Trump as well. Go ahead, Matt. Matt, you there? Trey, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kylan. Yeah, he just needs to as president, you can't be so brazen. And it's funny because personally, I'm a very critical person. So sometimes I'll say things, I'll say things to people or, mention people that would seem controversial, not controversial, but people would say is, oh, that's mean or so and so. So it's interesting because I'm kind of similar to Donald Trump in that way in terms of how how some of his conversation is very brazen or sometimes very critical or seemingly very non-presidential. But he but from my perspective and personal experience with just in conversation with people or you talking to somebody who's important, that type of thing, like you have to change how you talk. Now that he's president, he's got to understand, okay, although personally, my person and my personality, I might be in terms of how I speak, it might be very brazen or controversial. Some of the things I say people don't like. As president, you can't do that anymore. And because, like I said, you're the president of the United States. And to me, I think it comes with a lack of respect for the position itself, maybe. I think because maybe he doesn't understand and truly respect the position of president of the United States and what it really entails, both in terms of what all the things, all your duties as president, and then also the character that you have to portray as president. And Donald Trump doesn't understand that clearly. He clearly doesn't understand that because of the way he portrays himself in the media, the way he portrayed himself in the campaign, the way he talks on his Twitter account, which is very odd for a president to be, going on Twitter and tweeting about random things. But yeah, like you said, I think Donald Trump needs to sit down and shut up till he's actually elected, until he's actually inaugurated into the office as president. And once he's inaugurated as president, he has to. This is not, this is not a choice. He has to understand the importance of the duties that he has as the president of the United States, and he also has to understand that maybe his personal character traits could potentially be his downfall. And so because of that, he's got to kind of tone things down a little bit in terms of how he speaks, how his conversation is a little bit brazen a lot of times.
Matt, we're on final thoughts on Donald Trump, and we're on the Electoral College as well. And the question around the Electoral College is, do you think now with the election of Donald Trump, you think it's time to get rid of the Electoral College, or where are you at on that? You can go ahead, Matt.
Well, believe it or not, if you look at the way the Constitution is, I mean, do you need the Electoral College or do you not need it? I'm torn. Being knowing history, understanding American history, and way why things are constructed. You need it, but you don't need it. But you need it. The reason I say this is because, it's like saying if the rural part of the country, says one thing, and the urban part of the country says something totally different. Those are two separate cultures, believe it or not. And, population has a lot to do. It's so many little small things when it comes to voting, because everybody's needs are different. Everybody's issues are different. Everybody's views are different. You may go to one part of a state that's very, very conservative, rurally conservative, and you may go to another part of the state which is more of a metropolis and is more of a liberal base. It's more liberal, if not now in many cases progressive now. So for the most part, you kind of need it, but the way population is, it's a weird science. It's a weird science. I will have to get more into what the others was thinking about in terms of electoral college at the time that it was framed, and then look at what it is right now. So okay, at the 21st century in 2016, do we need it? So that's now it becomes that question: do we need it now? Because for the way it looks, you can say, okay, the popular vote says Hillary won the whole thing, but the Electoral College says otherwise. So, unfortunately, the Electoral College rules over popular vote. And this is not the first time this happened. This is the second time. If we all remember, Al Gore won the popular vote and lost the election. Thank you, Florida. So, and then when it comes to Trump, you have to understand, he's the leader of the free world. And for people who voted for this man, and there are people who either voted for straight party line, it was something that they heard from this man that says, you know what, I want this man as my leader. The fact that you had the election was toxic. It was the most toxic election in the history of America. Very toxic. So with that being said, you had that storm brewing going on. Oh, by the way, the Democrats was pretty much in their own way and did not confront the issues that was coming after Hillary Clinton, which, oh, by the way, anyway, with Bernie Sanders. So that's a whole nother story for another day, for another time. But the bottom line is, you knew what Donald Trump is, you knew what he was, and you knew what he's going to be. This was no surprise. This was no shock. You knew full and darn well that this is who he's going to be. He showed you who he's going to be, and I'm not shocked. I'm not as an African American male at 32. I'm a bit, fearful. I mean, you can say all Christian cliches all you want, but the reality is, it is what it is, and we have to face it. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do to say, hey, you have to represent 300 plus million Americans in this country, and you're not going to walk around here and act like a plum fool. Now, if you want to be impeached, if you want to be, if you want to, say, you know what, your job is free, say so now. Spare us spare us the hell. I mean, with Mike Pence, we know what we're getting. We know what we're getting. But with that being said, do we need to let Electoral College geographically? You kind of do, because but once you study it and understand a little bit more, he goes, yeah, you do kind of need it, because think about this. The part of the country that we live in. We live in a megalopolis. You got Boston, you got New York, you got Boston, New York, Hartford, Philadelphia, North Jersey, South Jersey. You keep going to Delmarva, Baltimore, all the way down to Richmond, Virginia. From Richmond, Virginia, you have nothing. It's a megalopolis. It's huge. You're going to hit at least one, two, three, at least 6 major hubs. 7 major hubs before you get to Nowheresville between the Virginia line and Florida. I'll say Charleston if maybe. But you kind of need it, but you don't, but you kind of do, unfortunately.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah, Matt. You're right. Go ahead, Trey. Take off.
Well, the the most important thing to think about in terms of the electoral college is something called the diversity of preferences. Um, Essentially, what the diversity of preferences is exactly what it sounds like. In the United States, um, there's a lot of different preferences in terms of political preferences. There's a lot of different religious preferences and other types of different preferences. And what the popular vote says is most people thought that, most people voted for, in this case, Hillary Clinton. And I think it was something like 2 million more people voted for Hillary Clinton. What the Electoral College does is it allows for in this election specifically, a lot of the more conservative states, and actually some of the states that were, had been predominantly Democrat states, it allowed for those people who didn't want Hillary Clinton to be president and had different preferences than Hillary Clinton. It allowed them to voice their preference, and more of those people actually voted. So I think no, it's not time to get rid of the Electoral College. Maybe it's time to tweak some things in the Electoral College. But I mean, I don't think the Electoral. I think one of the main arguments people make against the Electoral College is that it kind of discriminates against certain people. And I don't think the Electoral College itself maybe discriminates against certain smaller states. But I do believe that the Electoral College may not be, it works, but it doesn't work. Like it kind of, there's certain parts about it. And I don't, just because we only talking about this for a little bit, but I think at this point we need to keep the Electoral College, and maybe there's some things we can tweak about it to make it better. But it's definitely not. It's kind of like the conversation we had last week about Thursday Night Football. Maybe it's not time to get rid of Thursday Night Football. Maybe it's just time. Max Kellerman mentioned, maybe we just make it rivalry night. So with the Electoral College, maybe you do something. You give certain states less Electoral College votes, so that these so-called swing states don't they literally swing the election one way or another. And if it's a predominantly Republican state, that a Democratic candidate is trying to win, if that's kind of like the state that they need to win in order to win the election, and it's a predominantly Republican state and you're a Democrat, it's like, you have a very low chance of winning the election. So maybe we need to lower, Electoral College votes on one end. But yeah, that's what I think.
This call from Kenneth. Hey, yeah, I agree. I agree with Trey that with Trey and Matt that we need to do something about the Electoral College. But we have a lot going on, and like the purpose of the Electoral College was to stop the original purpose of the Electoral College was to save the people from themselves, which is to stop a crazy person or whatever from being president because the founder fathers didn't trust the people's vote, and that's why you have the electoral college. And in this case, the electoral college was set up to stop somebody like Donald Trump, who a lot of us don't think should have been president. But in this case, it kind of, because of the demographics and people not voting and things like being topsy-turvy in this election, because let's face it, it was a topsy-turvy election, Donald Trump is winding up being our president. And so what we have right now is very a chaotic situation. So we need to definitely fix it and anything. But it gets very topsy-turvy and everything. So I think that we, as far as what I think that the Electoral College needs to change. I think the popular vote should matter. I definitely think it should go more into what's going on, but it doesn't, and it's kind of difficult to have all this stuff, and when you have people like Donald Trump in office. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the topic. I think we're gonna move on to our next topic, which we're gonna lead off with our Eagles, because they won last night. Finally, they're 6-9 now. Beat the Giants, stopped them from clinching against the Eagles on their home field. So let's hit it up. What's y'all thoughts on that? Go ahead, Matt. Take off.
Well, a win's a win in the National Football League, as Andy Reid said before many times over. Especially on a Thursday night. From what I saw that game is you saw what happens when you have, for the most part, one of your best offensive line playing the game. And you seem like, wait a minute, you telling me for 10 games, and the way they ran the football, and the way they handled themselves in the line of scrimmage, you're telling me that's the team that I was supposed to be seeing 10 games ago? And it's frustrating as a fan to see this. It's like, okay, thanks. Finally, we got this 5-game skid off or out the way. But now it's like, okay, now the games mean nothing. The games really don't mean nothing at this point. Only for pride, and for the fact that it also helps Carson Wentz, really play the full season. So, by the time hopefully in 2017 roll around, we shouldn't be in the same, hopefully 7-9 situation again. This does remind me a little bit of Donovan McNabb's first year, along with Andy Reid's first year. This does remind me of that a little bit. They started the year 5-11, and then next thing you know, the next year they just took off. I expect the same. I really expect the same. Only difference is we need to answer a lot of our needs immediately, not just in the draft, but also through free agency. I know we don't control our first round pick, but I'm happy we have one. I mean, that's the bottom line. I'm happy that we at least have a first round pick, because if you say to yourself, okay, we're going to give away a first round pick for whatever, you better make the playoffs. You better make the playoffs. You better go deep into the playoffs if you're going to do that. If not, you better have a plan B, and that plan B happened to be Sam Bradford and the first round pick. Good move. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we got our win, but we helped the Dallas Cowboys. We helped those SOBs clinch the division. And the first round, it's nauseating. It really is. It's like the win was bittersweet in a sense, we're happy we got the win, but you help your rival, the one rival that you just can't stand, not only clinch, first round bye, but home field advantage throughout the rest of the playoffs. That is nauseating. And they play well at home. So, just that reality. That's just that knowing that reality. I mean, yes, as an Eagles fan, I don't want the Giants celebrating their clinch the playoff on my turf. I don't want that. But just to know that the Dallas Cowboys are just, it's nauseating. It really is. But as far as the Eagles is concerned, there is some positives. They ran the football well. I'm still concerned about their defense, and it does need some work, particularly with the secondary. But it's a positive that I did see. But again, the secondary troubles me a little bit from time to time, and in the receivers, there was a Nelson Aguilar sighting. It was, and then he went back to being Nelson Aguilar once again, dropping 2-3 passes that I saw from my count. But a win's a win. I'll take it. But it's the fact that the Dallas Cowboys, y'all make me sick. That's all I got to say on that one.
Yeah, I was talking to Colin, but kind of before the podcast started about the Eagles. I'm happy that they won. At the same time, the game doesn't really mean much, and like you said, Matt, the game it's bittersweet because we won, but at the same time, we kind of helped the Cowboys out, like helping them clinch the division. So, in terms of what this game means for us, I don't really think it means much, to be honest with you. The Giants have not won a season series against us in forever, and after that first touchdown and that pick six in the first quarter, I was sure that we would win that game. There was some moments where I was like, maybe the Giants are coming back, but as the game kind of got towards those last, I think it was like the last, I want to say 3 minutes or so, I was like, we got this, But I think it was it was interesting because, Lane Johnson's coming back. We ran the ball fairly well. I think we can run the ball a little bit better. But I think part of the fact, the reason why we weren't able to run the ball as effectively as we would have liked is because Ryan Matthews was out of the game, or at least wasn't able to run at 100%. If y'all didn't know, he's done for the he's done for the year. We only have one game left, but he has a herniated disc in his back, so he's going to have surgery soon. But I think with Lane Johnson back in there, if he is able to stay off the drugs and if he can be in a position where he's not going to fail another drug test, well, we'll be fine. The only thing is, if he fails one more, he's suspended for a whole year. The other thing is, this game showed me some things about Carson Wentz. Clearly, Carson Wentz is the quarterback of our future. He made some great plays with his feet in the pocket. There were some plays where he should have been sacked. Like, it should have been like a 10-yard loss. But because of his athleticism and his ability to evade a defender, he a few times he kind of ducked around the defender, ran and got a few yards. One time he ran and got the first down. He kind of scared us when his arm hit the ground, and it looked like he had fumbled, but he was already down. But the one thing that worried me about this game and has started to worry me in these last couple games is Carson Wentz's tendency to kind of try to not necessarily force balls, but he's taking a little bit too long to get the ball where it should be. And I think maybe I don't think he's hesitant. I think he's thinking too much about, whether he should throw it to this guy or not. And he just needs to throw it because clearly he has the arm. And I think maybe a little bit of like understanding about the NFL game. And as he matures, maybe this will stop. Hopefully it won't become a habit for him. But there was 2 plays where he did this. The first play, the first time it happened, it was an interception. He kind of was sitting in the pocket. He kind of ran around, evaded some tackles, set his feet, and threw the ball. And it was about a 30-yard pass or so, and it could have been a completion. But Landon Collins kind of read Carson Wentz's eyes, came over and intercepted the ball, or not Landon Collins, but Rogers Cromartie, who's a former Eagle, came over and intercepted the ball, got both feet in bounds, turnover. But that all happened because Carson Wentz kind of hesitated before he let go of the ball, and what he's doing is he's kind of thinking, okay, I can get that ball in there. I have a strong arm. In the NFL, it's a lot harder to do, fit, those windows in the NFL are, 10, 20 times smaller than they are in college. And the second time he did it, I think it was just a complete pass, an incomplete pass. And the third time he did it, it was on a comeback route to Dorial Green-Beckham. And Dorial Green-Beckham was open for the first down. But Carson Wentz kind of hesitated or whatever was going on. And he tried to get this bullet pass to him, but he threw it late. It's supposed to be a timing route where you kind of throw the ball as soon as that receiver, and really before that receiver breaks. So when they come out of their break, they turn around, the ball's there already. And Carson Wentz is, there's been a couple times in the last couple of weeks where he's not. Those timing routes are off, and maybe that's because the receivers aren't running the routes properly. But all in all, I'm happy we won. It's a little bit bittersweet because the Cowboys are now clinching the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but if we can, put some pieces around Carson Wentz, I'm excited about, some more wins against the Giants, and it's also, I guess, it would be a confidence booster for all the players on the team because before last night we were 0-4 in the division. And so that was a good win for us. Because if we had lost this game, now I think because the Cowboys have already clinched the division, next week that New Year's Eve game won't mean anything for the Cowboys, and they'll probably rest their starters. So that'll be a win for us probably, and we'll probably end the season 7-9. So I think we'll end thankfully, we're going to end the season on a 2-game winning streak and end the season on a high note.
Yeah. So I agree, man. I think the Eagles did a lot of good things last night. Like it really shows the effectiveness of Lane Johnson, man. Trey was alluding to conversations before this podcast about that we were having about the Eagles, man. It just shows like the importance of Lane Johnson, man. The Eagles, I shared this record before, not on the podcast, but I'll share it now that the Eagles are 4-2. No, 5-2 now with Lane Johnson, and without Lane Johnson, they're 2-5, and so like they need Lane Johnson. He's like their best offensive lineman. He's the youngest offensive lineman, so we need him. He can't be failing drug tests anymore. Like Trey alluded to, his next drug test is a year suspension. He can't be our Josh Gordon. And so I don't know what the Eagles got to do, but they need to make sure. Maybe they need to draft somebody, but they need to make sure Lane Johnson doesn't ever think it's a good idea to use drugs again. Um, as far as Carson Wentz, man, Carson Wentz, he's a good quarterback, but we like a lot of people are comparing him to Brett Favre, and that's the Brett Favre gunslinger mentality. He'll keep you in the game, but sometimes he'll hesitate or think he can make a throw that he just can't make right now. He can't squeeze a ball into a tight window and not have it intercepted. But he thought that he could, and so Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, DRC, had to show him that he's not about that life right now. But eventually he will be about that life. So I think that like the interceptions are good because it shows that he wants to do a lot, but we just need a better receiver. We need a true number one receiver, a true tight end, a true number one running back. Like Zach Ertz, he needs to show up some more in these games. I know he hobbled off with an injury, and like Ryan Matthews and Darren Sproles, they're both excellent players, but they're not number one running back. We need to draft a number one running back. We need a lot of things on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, we're good. We just need to re-sign Benny Logan. But I think that next year Carson Wentz is going to take a huge step forward. I think the Eagles will be a problem next year. And I think that now that Lane Johnson is back and we have something to work for the last game, getting him reacclimated, as long as he doesn't fail another drug test, we can do something with him. And as far as the game last night, yeah, it was a little bittersweet to win a game, but actually have it matter more to the Cowboys than anybody else. But you know what? Them's the breaks. Lane Johnson just needs to learn that he's just that important. He's like the MVP of our whole offense. A lot more with him, and we need to work it out a lot more with him. And he's a good player, and we need him. So that's my thoughts on it. I think like the number one priority needs to be getting a left tackle because I love Jason Peters and I know he just got selected to a Pro Bowl and everything, but it's time to get rid of him and Kelsey. Time to go out and get a left tackle. It's just time, man. If y'all we can move on to the next topic if no one else has anything to add. Anybody else have anything to add?
If you put it this way, and I agree with you, I agree with the fact that, as far as Carson Wentz is concerned, on the fact that, he's just making rookie mistakes. That's the bottom line. That's all I'm seeing is just rookie mistakes. And I expect the way his work ethic is, those mistakes will be rectified, of course, over the course of the offseason. Now, as far as Brett Favre's gunslinger mentality, I don't see it. I don't personally see it. I mean, there's flashes of it because he's a rookie, but I don't see the Brett Favre thing because it's like when you watch Brett Favre, it's like he's the type of guy that makes you want to pull your hair out. Okay, that's Brett Favre. I mean, amazing to watch, but at the same time, it's like he's like, don't do it. Yeah, great job. No, that's Brett Favre. But as far as Carson Wentz is concerned, a lot of stuff is going to get ironed out. Like I said, a lot of mistakes he's making now, and I'm glad he's making them now, versus, say, year 5. It was like, come on, what are you doing? I mean, I expect within the next year that we should see a better quarterback. And as far as drafting is concerned, yeah, we need an offensive line. We need to draft an offensive line. This offensive line is getting older. And also, I mean, the makeup of this team has to change. It has to change, and it has to start with the offensive side of the football. It has to start. You need a running game. You saw what happens when you have an effective running game. Carson Wentz actually plays better. He plays a lot better. He's more comfortable in the pocket. He's more comfortable playing the game versus when you had no running game and you throwing 60 balls, and that's a problem. You can't have that. So you have a running game. I notice Carson Wentz plays better. He's pretty much, if not at his best, when he has some type of an established running game. And look at it. Also, you look at it from that standpoint. The offensive line is key. Lane Johnson, just lay off the roids, man. Lay off the roids, because we see he's the MVP of this team. Like Colin said, he's the MVP of this team by just being home for 10 weeks. So, with that being said, Jason Peters is not getting any younger. The line, I think the offensive line has started to finally got the groove together. But like I said, the continuity has been not great because you have to patchwork this offensive line. You really had to. So, like I said, next year this team is going to be a problem. I think so. This team's going to be a problem, big time. Anybody else want to take it? It's all yours.
Yeah, man. I just want to add in that, Lane Johnson covers up a lot of iniquities with that offensive line. Like, we didn't have no penalties. Kelsey didn't pick up no holding penalties. Peters didn't do nothing. Like, all the penalties were the Giants. Like, Lane Johnson is a good player. He's worth $30 million. And, I just want him, if he listens to this podcast, if somebody connected to him listens to this podcast, tell that man to stay off the amphetamines. I don't care if the doctor says it's the best thing ever. It can make you lose weight and be a better offensive lineman. No more amphetamines, Lane. We need you. You're not Josh Gordon. This isn't going to happen anymore. We need you. Stop playing around with these drugs. Yeah, let's move on to another topic. We can move right along to the collegiate part of our topic now. It's come to the attention of the public that two top picks, Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey, have decided to skip their respective bowl games in order to save themselves for the NFL instead of playing in their meaningless college football games, because both LSU and Stanford are not in the playoffs and they're not playing for a championship. Now, I want to know what the fellas think about that. What y'all think about an article about it? WatsonSports6.com. Check it out. Called "The Sit Out Generation." Go ahead, Matt. Take it, and we can go right down the line.
The reason I'm laughing right now is because bowl games today is a joke. It is by far the biggest joke of all. I mean, you talk about, but I'm gonna get to the players in a moment, but you talk about advertising whoredom, okay? I mean, some of these bowl games, I've researched bowl games. Some of these bowl games has lost its luster. I mean, I can name you Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Orange Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. There used to be the thing called the Blue Bonnet Bowl. The Liberty Bowl used to be in Philadelphia before they moved to Jacksonville, and now Peach Bowl and everything. Now I got these Chick-fil-A bowls, Insight.com bowl, and some corporate name sponsor got a bowl. It's a joke. And you know what? I thought long and hard about this. I really have. But take away the college playoff system and the Rose Bowl. You take away that, because the Rose Bowl, that's the granddaddy of them all. The Rose Bowl has a lot of tradition. With that being said, all these other bowl games are a joke, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. I really don't blame those players for sitting out for their respective bowl games, because my thought process is simply this. advertisers have already tainted this game enough as it is, particularly in college. They've really tainted the game, in my opinion. It also takes away the authentic, like, it's like watching a bowl game is like I'm watching a big giant commercial. Honestly, that's what it feels like to me. It's like there's no the build up to it doesn't exist for me. I mean, yeah, you have the Armed Forces Bowl. You got it's for the Armed Forces. I get it. I understand it's for the military, and you pretty much being horse in the military as well. But that's another story. But you know, to me, bowl games have stories. There's always this. I mean, I like to get myself up for the Cotton Bowl. I mean, some of these bowls don't even exist anymore. Like, I think the Sun Bowl stopped or at one point. But if you really look at all these bowl games that are taking place, and they've changed names and whatever, they're not the same like they were 20 years ago. They're not the same. And I don't blame these players not want to play for the respect. Because at first, like this, you're playing for your school, you're representing your school, this, that, and the third. But the more you think about it, it's like, why? Why? You're giving advertisers more money that I can't take home. All because I'm a student athlete. Which goes back to, should I get paid as a student athlete? Because, these advertisers are forking over millions and millions of dollars just to present these bowl games. And, if I'm not playing with the exception of the Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, and, these other bigger bowl games, what's the point? I mean, nice trip, whatever. What's the point? So I don't blame these guys who they know for the fact their draft stock is important, and they know for the fact that they're telling you, like, this is my next career move. This is where I want to be. If I don't make it, okay, I tried. But because and these are running backs too. Most of these are running backs, so full darn well that the shelf life of a running back average is about 5-6 years. So I don't blame them. Why go through the rigor of going through a meaningless bowl game versus I might as well get myself ready for the draft. If I have a bad game or I get hurt, your stock value, your draft value goes down. Never mind get hurt. Like I said, you have a bad game or whatever. It's a risk. It's a risk reward to me. It's kind of like a risk versus reward thing, but at the same time, I can understand their point. And also, it's more like to me, you're sticking it to advertisers, saying, "Look, this you cannot profit. You're actually profiting off basically more or less free labor. You kind of are doing that." So I don't blame them. I think bowl games need to be re-evaluated and re-examined because it has lost its luster for me, with the exception of the bigger bowl games. These lower tier bowl games, they're a joke. They really are a joke, and I don't blame them for sitting down for it. So, time's yours.
Well, I can see how a player will want to sit out. Like, I can understand, for example, Christian McCaffrey or Leonard Fournette for sitting out a bowl game, which in their mind, doesn't have any meaning. There was I saw, I think it was on First Take or something. They played a little clip of an interview with Nick Saban, the coach of, or not Saban, whatever Alabama's coach's name is. I think it's Saban.
It is.
Yeah, Saban. He was saying, with the introduction of the playoff, like you said, man, a lot of these bowl games have, and even before the playoff was introduced, a lot of these bowl games don't really mean much anymore. They don't have as much oomph as a bowl like the Rose Bowl used to be a game that I looked forward to watching. Now it still kind of is, because technically the Rose Bowl is actually one of the one of the playoff games. It's like, I guess that's considered the semifinal. But he basically Saban was saying, with the introduction of the playoff and the lackluster, the games that the bowl games have become lackluster, at least in the eyes of many players. And so, by that logic, why wouldn't they sit out the game, and focus on, what they want to do in terms of the NFL. Now, if I'm a senior, I think it makes sense. If I'm a senior, I don't think it makes sense. Like, if I'm a senior, I want to have as many games as I can to show NFL scouts that I'm an NFL player. Now maybe, in these, lesser important, well, especially if you're not a team that's making in the playoff, to set out a bowl game, okay, because you still have the Senior Bowl. But for players who aren't seniors, like, this is your last opportunity to show, in terms of a full game atmosphere, this is your last chance to show scouts, that I still have it. So, and especially as a running back, like somebody like Christian McCaffrey, who I think is going to be a very good NFL player, but, people have some questions. There's some questions about him. Is he fast enough? Is he athletic enough? Clearly he's a good player. But to me, I think I think if it makes sense for you personally to sit out, then I say go ahead and do it. At the same time, like, I feel like this is my personal opinion, that I would want to go out, especially if I'm not a senior, I would want to go out with a bang in my last game. And especially as an offensive player, like, I would want to go out with a bang, and like I want to have my best game, so people understand, hey, okay, this guy really is a first round talent. Like, he should go, in the first, within the first 10 picks. Now, Matt, you mentioned maybe this could potentially, playing in a game like this could potentially hurt your NFL draft stock. And I kind of disagree with that. I don't think one bad game is really gonna, like, as at certain positions, it doesn't really matter. Like, one bad game is not really gonna hurt you that much. Like, for a running back, you don't rush for 100 yards, big deal. Like, your draft stock is not going to drop that much. For a quarterback, it might. You'd have to have a terrible game, a really, really bad game at any position to, like, for your draft stock to really drop just because of one bad game. So by that logic, I say don't sit out. But by the logic of, hey, I need to work on, my NFL game, I need to go work out and get ready for pro day. If I'm a senior, I need to be ready for the Senior Bowl. Then go ahead and sit out, especially if you're talking about these bowls that don't really have any meaning. But if you're a proponent of, these bowls, if you want to bring back the luster of some of these lesser known bowls, for example, like the Sun Bowl, which is this year Stanford and North Carolina, and Christian McCaffrey is not playing in this game. If you're a proponent of bringing back the luster of those games and the excitement of those games, then I can see why, you would probably agree with somebody who like Nick Saban, who, probably wouldn't want his players sitting out.
So yeah, I agree. I agree with y'all. I think though, if they wanted these players to risk their careers, their future careers in the NFL, for these meaningless bowl games, I actually don't think it's really, the bowl games have become meaningless. I think because of the playoff system. Like, it's a result of the playoff system. So, you have people like Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey, and I think Matt mentioned this, that are playing in these meaningless games and they're not getting paid for it. It's not like the NFL, NBA players where, like, it doesn't matter whether it's preseason or whatever, they're gonna get paid. right? So you basically have these players that are like, well, these bowl games don't mean nothing. It's not like I'm getting paid. I might as well save my body for when the real games count. And for real, it's only a matter of time because um, in the NFL, unlike the NBA, where the NBA has this one and done rule where players that want to get drafted have to go 1 year in college. In the NC for the NFL, the players have to stay for 3 years, so they can't come out until their junior year. So like they have 3 years of playing college football in meaningless games, and it's really only a matter of time before somebody. And this is just the beginning. Like I think Fournette and McCaffrey are just the beginning. Like I feel like there's going to be more people deciding to sit out games because, like, you know, it's not like you're getting paid. They feel like the NCAA feels like the education you get is enough. And we've had numerous discussions on this podcast about this. If you want these players to not sit out and you're Nick Saban and you have basically an NFL team, well, if you don't want your team to sit out, and you want them to play for free while you get $20 million as the Alabama coach, pay them. Like, it really is that simple. Like, if you want your number one pick, because here's a perfect example, right? Jalen Ramsey. He is the number one draft pick for the Cowboys, right? He decided to play in the Fiesta Bowl last year. What happened to him for playing in the Fiesta Bowl in a game that, granted, he was playing against Ohio State for a playoff spot, but it was a meaningless game. What wound up happening to him? Tore his MCL and ACL, went from a top 5 pick to the 34th pick by the Cowboys, lost millions of dollars, like $20.5 million, playing in a meaningless game even if it was for a championship, it's still a meaningless game because they still don't pay you. They pay you in championships. Woohoo, that's the back. They make money off your back, build stadiums off your labor, and they ain't paying you. Like, that's how I feel about it. I feel like if they want these games to matter, if they want what Leonard Fournette and McCaffrey are doing to not happen more, you pay the players. This is a perfect argument. Pay me or I'll sit out the whole season. And I'll force, because we all know, we see that with Lane Johnson, missing one player can destroy your whole season. I bet you if players decided to sit out the whole NCAA season, they get paid real quick. So to anybody listening to this podcast, I am a proponent of paying players, especially in college sports, because I don't really care because they make all this money off them, especially football and basketball players. Like, you make all this money off them. Pay them. You don't want them to sit out? Pay them. College basketball, you don't want to lose your players to the CBA and European leagues where they can just go and play for a year and then come over in the NBA and match the requirements? Pay them. It really is that simple. And like, they don't want that. They don't want to play players because they don't want to lose that monopoly. Because then if the NCAA pays players, it means they're not amateurs. How can you be an amateur league? How can that be allowed to stand when everybody makes money except for these players? They can't even sign autographs or else they'll risk being suspended. Like, how stupid is that? I'm sorry, but it really is. Like, the NCAA has needed that amateurism clause needed to die a long time ago. And I really do hope that this is the start of something. I hope somebody on a Christian McCaffrey or Leonard Fournette level in another position as quarterback or cornerback or something decides to just sit out a whole season. And if enough of them do that, they'll get paid. So for real, I'm done with this. If they want these players to not sit out a lot, have Leonard Fournette and them start a trend, pay them. Because right now, unless you planning on adding 4 more teams, you're gonna have more people do this. Y'all can add your final thoughts on it.
I shall. In fact, while you was talking about it, I was online looking up all these bowl games, and the big ones, other than the big bowl games, are the Rose Bowl, the Sun Bowl, the Cotton Bowl, Sugar Peach Bowl, which is the Chick-fil-A peach, what the hell that thing is, and the Fiesta Bowl. Now, those are the big ones. Now, if you take as I googled it, and unfortunately, yes, I did go to I admit it, I did go to
Matt, you there? Uh-oh. Troy, go ahead. Add your final thoughts. I don't know what happened to Matt.
All right. Yeah, you mentioned some key issues in the NCAA, but to me, I think in terms of the product that college football puts out, I think it's a very good product. Um, but that product is based on, as you mentioned, Kylan, free labor essentially, where these players, go out, especially like you mentioned, basketball and football players, both female and male. Well, female basketball players, male basketball players, and football teams. They make bank for these universities, and you say, well, they get scholarships back. Okay, but they can't take that scholarship money and use it for gas. They can't take that scholarship money and use it for dinner. They can't take that scholarship money and use it for other things. And if somebody even thinks about offering to pay for things like gas or taking them out to dinner or buying them a car or buying them some cleats or some new basketball sneakers, they're penalized for it. You had the whole big scandal with Miami with the booster. So it's like there's this double standard where you know people are like, well, they're frustrated with players who are sitting out, but at the same time, you're not paying these players. Um, and so it's like, okay, we don't want you to sit out. Well, why? Well, because we want you to play the game. The fans want to see you, but you're not paying me. It's my decision whether or not I play. For real, for real. Although I'm on the scholarship. Um, hey, it's really my decision in terms of my future. If you're thinking about NFL players, you know, Jalen Ramsey got injured and lost $20 million because of that injury. And sometimes coaches and the rest of the NCAA are not really thinking about, hey, some of these players, might want to sit out to risk not getting injured before the draft and significantly dropping their draft stock. Some of these guys, they might get drafted and might sign that rookie contract and they might go through that rookie contract and turn out to be a complete bust. Somebody like Trent Richardson is a perfect example of this. Got drafted high, got a nice contract, and never did anything else. I don't even think I think he's currently a free agent, but he got that money in his or at least at least whatever he got in his first 2 years that he was actually playing. And I think that's why you need to have guaranteed NFL contracts, but that's a whole nother topic. If players want to sit out in the in NCAA, go ahead, let them do it. If you have a problem with them do it, like Kylan said, you're gonna have to pay them, or there has to be some type of compensation to say, hey, if you're gonna sit out, we're not gonna pay you. That's really all I got to say.
Go ahead, Matt. You were in the middle of something before you cut
Yeah,
off.
I was listing all these bowl games, but where I got cut off, you got the point on the fact of it's like these advertisers are putting money into these bowl games, and like I said, I agree with Nick Saban on the fact that it's lost its luster. It's lost its it just lost its punch. You know, and when you have these bowl games, and so you win the game, you are what at bowl name here bowl champion. I'll be honest with you, it's like, yay, okay, whatever. It's not the Rose Bowl. It's not like the Cotton Bowl. It's not the Sugar Bowl. It's the New Orleans Bowl. It's the New Mexico Bowl. It's the Idaho Potato Bowl. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? And as far as, you know, these players, and I understand there's the pros and cons to it all. There is pros and cons to it. At the same time, you have to look at it this way. Like, some of these guys will never play football of that again. I mean, I can understand that. And that's why some of these guys do play in these bowl games, because chances are they'll never be drafted, or they'll never they might become free agents or whatever. But who knows? But I can understand the sentimental value of it all. Being a college athlete myself, I can understand the sentimental value of it. But when you know full well that you're going to be, you know, one of those top players in that draft, then you kind of have leverage. You do have leverage, and like I said, it's not one of those bowl games that I listed: Sun Bowl, no, Rose, Cotton, Sugar, Peach, Fiesta, and, you know, National Championship. Any one of them things, don't call me. An Orange Bowl, don't call me. Don't I don't want no part of it, because those bowl games I listed, it has weight, particularly the Rose Bowl. That's like I said before, that's the granddaddy of them all. You don't turn down the Rose Bowl, no, because of course that's New Year's. I think it's New Year's Day, or if it's New Year's Day, because the Tournament of Roses parade, which you know, before the game, you got it. You can't turn that down. But, you know, like I said, you have to pay these players if you're going to, as far as, you know, letting them put their bodies on the line for a meaningless bowl game. But it is the NCAA. You know, full darn well they're not going to pay their players. They're not going to do it, because basically, like I said, they got all the money. And for these schools, and paying these coaches outrageous salaries, and being an AD, an athletic director, they make more than just make a nice change. They make 7, if not 8 figures now. So the college game versus the pro game in terms of dollars and cents, the gap is there, but it's starting to close up ever so small. But it's going to be a gap regardless. So with that being said, the bowl season is a joke to me. I'm not interested. I've lost interest in it years ago, and you know, like I said, I'll watch the national championship. That's as far as it possibly the Rose Bowl, because I do have interest in, I think Penn State's in it, so I do have some interest in it. But other than that, this whole bowl season thing is a joke. So that's my take. That's my take on that, actually.
Okay. Yeah, like, I've already gone on my rant about that. You can tell that I am very, very tired when it comes to NCAA and their tactics. But we're gonna move on to our beloved Sixers. There's some parts of this I'm not going to talk about right now, because Trey's going to talk about it later with his final hot take. So I'm not going to take away his thunder. But let's talk about the Sixers. They've been on a little bit of a winning streak up until they lost to the Pelicans. but they've been on a little bit of a winning streak for a little while. So let's talk about our 76ers. Nerlens Noel has some comments about how the front court is a little too crowded and everything. So why don't y'all take off on that? Go ahead, Matt.
Front court, where you been? Front court's been crowded. When they drafted Embiid, so you knew, and Dario Saric, you knew this was going to happen. You know what? It's up to the Sixers front office what to do. I mean, they put themselves in this situation, which is a very good situation. Injuries will happen in the NBA. Injuries will happen. So, with that being said, it's up to Brett Brown what to do with those players and have the right rotation for those big men. We hear in the press that Embiid is lobbying for Nerlens Noel to play together, which to me it's interesting because I haven't seen the game, the Pelicans game, but from what I'm hearing is the fact that when Embiid and Okafor is playing, it's like Okafor is like he's just not playing well. It's like since he's been here, Jahlil Okafor has given me somewhat of a bad something. Don't know what it is. It's like, to me, I know he can play better than this. We see him play at Duke. It's like, and my thing is, I need him to take his game to another level. You're in the NBA now. You either you want to take it, either you want to do something with your game and evolve it, or you just who you are, and you're just gonna be a role player. And that's where I'm starting to see this as right now for him being a Sixer, and probably beyond him being a role player. I don't see him I don't think he has that killer instinct. I mean, Joel Embiid is like, he's a franchise player. He's playing like a franchise player, and he's not only that, he's taken that role and he's embraced it. He really has embraced the role of being a franchise player. He said, "Hey, call me the process." I'm like, "Okay, if you say so." And you do need two big men. I am as a basketball person, I'm a firm believer in big men because big men change the game. But the NBA is a guard-oriented league. But in the history of the NBA, big men you've always had to have a big man to win the championship. Always. And it's evident. You have to have that. Of course, you need a guard. We do need a guard. We're trying to wait for Ben Simmons to come back. He'll be back around, February. As that is concerned, the Sixers are on the right track right now. It's up to Brett Brown to put these guys in the right position and to get this rotation right. Get this rotation correct because I'm starting to see a little dissension going on between these big men. You got, and then now it's like, look, I understand. We're getting some momentum. We're starting to build momentum. Is this a playoff team? No, not even close. But they're about a year or two away from it. But with that being said, it's up to Brett Brown at this point. How he handles his team, how he coaches his team, all the way up to at this point. That's where it boils down to is the coaching, how this team responds. So it'll be interesting during the course of the regular season as to see how things turn out. So with that being said, the floor is yours, gentlemen.
when I heard about what Joel Embiid had said about wanting to play with Nerlens, I was intrigued because I want to see if they can play together as well. Like the idea that Nerlens Noel, when Brett Brown came out and said, that he's essentially going to be a bench player, that makes no sense to me. Nerlens is, he's not great on offense, but defensively he has potential to be a great rim protector. Be that, and he's already shown us that, with his first 2 years with us, that he can be that energy guy, play defense, block shots, get rebounds, that type of guy. And clearly, what we've seen so far with Joel and Jalil, I think it could potentially work. There's potential there, but like you said, Matt, like Jalil needs to step his game up and say, okay, he had a great rookie year. He put up like 18 and 8, I think, and that's, for a rookie, that's just, that's a solid season. But this year, and maybe it has something to do with his injury. Maybe he's not fully 100% yet. But at this point, he's got to put his, he's got to put 100% into the game, step his game up, and say, hey, I'm an NBA player now. I'm gonna show you that I'm an NBA player. And maybe he has to develop that killer instinct. But like you said, this team is, unless, we see some trades for, some guys, for some guys who would make this team a playoff team. This team is not going to make the playoffs. And it would definitely not hurt for Brett Brown to, have different lineups where you have Joel and Nerlens on the floor at the same time. Because at this point, this is the stage that the Sixers are in. They've got some pieces to build around. They've got some draft picks, and they're about a year, maybe 2 years away, unless they make some blockbuster trades from being in the playoffs. And so now what you've got to start doing is you got to start figuring out what lineups work and what lineups don't work. And you're gonna have to do that for now until Ben Simmons comes back. And then when Ben Simmons comes back, you're really gonna have to think long and hard about who you want on the team, who you don't want on the team, who fits best, what lineup plays best together. And not only which lineup plays best together, which lineup is a winning lineup. Jalil and Joel may very well be able to play together. The question is, when they're on the floor, is it a winning combination? And we haven't, and so, and to say that, to be honest with you, I think Nerlens Noel is probably going to be the one to be traded, just clearly based on how the front office and Brett Brown, they're favoring Joel Okafor. But it doesn't make sense in terms of, when you're building lineups and trying to figure out what lineup is a winning lineup. Like, why not throw Nerlens Noel in there and see what happens? Maybe they mesh better than Jalil and Joel do. And once you get a guard on the floor, or the guy who's going to be really our point guard, Ben Simmons, once you get him on the floor, you might open up some other things. To me, Joel and Jalil are very similar in terms of play style. Joel is obviously a much better defender. And I'm hoping that Jalil, I said this before, I'm hoping that Jalil doesn't turn out to be like a Greg Monroe type of player where he's, very good offensively, but defensively he's just an extreme liability, and doesn't really have that killer instinct. Hopefully he can hopefully what will happen is that Jalil, I think he's a little bit more athletic than Greg Monroe, will develop defensively and maybe even develop, like an 18-foot jumper or so that the paint is not clogged up, because that's kind of what's happening now. You're having Joel is having to sacrifice parts of his game in order for when Jalil's on the floor. And the way to fix that is for Jalil to open up his own game and develop the outside jumper so they can kind of play off of each other. But yeah, I mean, as far as his comments go, Joel Embiid's comments, a lot of people were kind of upset about it, saying on 94.1 they were talking about, that maybe he shouldn't be saying stuff about, who should be on the floor, who should not be on the floor. He's only a rookie, he's only played 20 games. I mean, hey, and if, in a year, maybe 2 years, he's gonna be the one who runs this franchise. We all know that the NBA is run by players. You got players like LeBron. Clearly he runs that organization. Back in Miami, D Wade when he was in Miami, he ran that organization. But I kind of like, what Joel is saying. He's like, hey, if y'all are gonna build around me, why not try to figure out what works best when I'm on the floor? So I mean, that's what I got for you. I guess you can go ahead. Whoever is next, I guess, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with y'all, but I disagree as well. It's good for the podcast. I agree that Nerlens Noel out of the three is the most expendable thing, but I disagree with Joel because, in all honesty, when I watch the games, I don't really think he tries to get people involved. Like Joe, he doesn't try to help Jahlil Okafor out a lot. Now, Trey brought up that he moves out to the offensive line and sacrifices some of his game. But when I see the games, like I saw the Nets game, I've seen their last couple games, everything except for today's game, and I see Jahlil sacrificing, like not going down to the paint when Joel's down there. He's out in the bottom line. He's throwing him passes. I really don't see Joel reciprocating that. Like, I think that they both need to work together more. But I definitely just think that Joel, he has a little bit of an ulterior motive as to why he doesn't want Ja down there with him. Is because, Jahlil is a dominating personality. And in the game that I see the Sixers are looking to him for leadership because Joel Embiid isn't there yet, where he can lead a team yet. So, and Jahlil Okafor is that guy. So, I feel like Nerlens Noel and Joel Embiid, with both of their comments in the last 2 weeks, are showing their immaturity. What needs to happen is Jahlil and Joel need to work out their problems because those two are the future, offensively and defensively. And Noel, I know a lot of people like him, but he's just an offensive liability. All he is good for is rebounding. I know there's people like Dennis Rodman, who I watched in my career. They only scored as a child. They only scored 2.9 a game, but get 20 rebounds. And that's Noel, but that's not what the Sixers need. He's expendable. We talk about this on this podcast a lot. He's an expendable piece. His comments lost him minutes. And what Joel wants is wants a person who he knows will get him the ball and won't try and take points away from him. Like Jahlil Okafor, Joel Embiid, y'all gotta realize is still on a minutes restriction. So any comments he makes concerning who he wants on the floor with him are people he wants passive people in there because he wants to be the dominating personality. He wants to score the 27 to 33 points. The reason why I think Jahlil Okafor is the leader of the team is because I watched that Nets game. He didn't score too many points, but he still grabbed 15 rebounds. He was trying to block shots. He was getting Jahlil Okafor. He was getting Joel Embiid involved in the game. But I didn't see Joel doing the same thing for him. I saw Joel going for the flashy stuff, blocking shots, doing all the other stuff. I think Joel needs to understand that the team will be better when you get involved. When you start turning the blocks and rebounds into an assist. You start turning the fact that you're basically a bigger, slimmer, more athletic Chris Bosh into something. You have to realize that the two main players, the big three, has nothing. It does not include Nerlens Noel. Nerlens Noel is not in the future. So when you hear Okafor's, not Okafor, Embiid's comments, you have to understand that he wants somebody that won't take points away. Embiid wants to score, wants to be like Allen Iverson and Russell Westbrook, score 40 points, have the rebounds, and have the team lose. That's what he wants. He wants to have all the points, and he wants us to lose. That's what he wants. That might not be what he actually wants, but that's what's going to happen, and that's what that lineup will do. That lineup that y'all want with Noel and Embiid will be a very offensively based, rebound based lineup that won't do anything for us when we need it the most. So, because Noel, we all know is an offensive liability. He's nothing. He should be just foot for guard and get run out of Philly, because he's not a Philly player. Like, if you like rebounding, then that's your type of player. But if you like anything else of substance outside of rebounding and defense, Nerlens Noel is not your guy. And I think that going along with that, I think Jallo Okafor can develop defense and stuff. He obviously can shoot. He just needs to develop his jump shot. But then again, once he develops a jump shot, it'll be the same thing. Then Joel will come out and say, well, he's taking too many jump shots. He needs to be down low. Joel just wants his points. That's what that is. And he wants his 28. He wants to be able to score 20-plus points in 28 minutes and not have nobody hindering his points. That's what he wants. Y'all can go ahead and comment on it.
I have to disagree on this premise, because I don't. Maybe it's me. Joel Embiid has commanded the presence that he wants to be the guy, and really, the Sixers don't have the guy. Really, not right now. But because we have not yet to see this whole team healthy. We have not seen this team healthy yet. So my thing is this: okay, pretty much Nerlens is basically a one-dimensional player at this point. He just plays straight defense. Offensively, he can be a liability, but at the same time, could work. Thinking about this, like, you know what? Okay, at first I was on the trade Nerlens Noel, anything else. Now I'm thinking that, wait a minute, if you play your cards right, this could work. Someone has to be on the bench, but this could work. How you work it? Like I said, it's up to Brett Brown to do this. But this could work. This could be a disaster. We don't know. It's up to Brett Brown to find that chemistry that's perfect, that fits the winning chemistry as well, that will help best fit this team. And, you know, the team does need rebounding. The team needs more of a defensive presence. I will totally agree with that. The offense, it'll take care of itself eventually. But this team has to be defensive-minded first. As a basketball person, for defense, as defense first, everything else will fall into place. Because my philosophy is, you can have the worst shooting night of your life. As long as you have your defense to fall back on, you'll be in every game that you play. That's my coaching philosophy. It has worked, actually. With that being said, I would say, you know what, as of right now, and you have Embiid on minute restrictions, which I think is stupid, and you have, you know, Nerlens coming back off of injury, Okafor's been here for a while. You know, we have not seen the team healthy. Let's not forget that Ben Simmons, he ain't played a lick of NBA basketball yet. Really, he has not played a lick of NBA basketball. So we still don't know. There's too many questions to be answered. There's too many questions that are not answered. So we still don't know. We're getting the answers as every game is being played right now. So With that, I disagree. I disagree on the fact of, Nerlens Noel being who he is. I mean, you need those rebounds. I'd rather him play defense and just keep me in the game until Embiid gets back off the bench. Who knows? I'm just saying.
Your sister should be here Sunday.
Yeah, I kind of hold on a second.
Yeah, let me elaborate more before Trey comes in. Like I like Joel Embiid, but I think that when he's I'm not saying he's a selfish player. He's a great player. He wants to be the guy. I agree with that. There's nothing wrong with being the guy, but the guy needs to know his place. Okay, like he is on 28 minutes restriction, and he does good scoring 20 plus points and 30 plus points in the thing. He's a big man. Joel Embiid is there for defense and for offense. But Jahlil Okafor has been making strides. These last 3 games I've been watching, he's been down there rebounding, banging. But like I said, I feel like a lot of people are glossing over this. I have not seen Joel Embiid make a concerted effort to help Jahlil Okafor get off. And I think it'll be the same thing with Nerlens Noel, because Nerlens Noel is an offensive liability. He doesn't get you points unless it's off offensive rebounds. And he also can't shoot a free throw. And we don't need that. We already shoot free throws horribly anyway. So like everybody knows who listens to this podcast, I'm a firm supporter of the Xfinity Towers, the Joel Embiid, Jahlil Okafor combination. And even Jahlil Okafor said, well, me and Jahlil need to work it out on the kinks and stuff. So you go from a couple weeks ago saying we need to work out the kinks and I'm excited to now saying, nah, I give up on it. I want Nerlens Noel. That speaks volumes to me about the type of player you want around you. Because when I think of Nerlens Noel, I don't think of somebody like a Jahlil Okafor that's going to be aggressive, that's going to fight for his shot, like I've seen the last 3 games. When I look at Nerlens Noel, I look at a guy who sees that he's the expendable one and has given up. It's not like he's willing to fight for his spot. Like he said his comments the other day, which I know Trey's going to have a final take on in a few minutes, so I'm not going to elaborate on that anymore. But he said his comments, now he only gets to play 8 minutes. We have another better 4th big man who rebounds, blocks shots, is great on offense, the young rookie. Like, that's who we need to play. They need to ship Nerlens Noel out of town. I know y'all want to see the Noel and B combination, but it's going to work out the same way last year the Noel and Okafor combination didn't work. It's going to be the same kind of thing. Because Noel is passive. He doesn't look for his shot because he's an offensive liability and everything. He's good for defense. And like Matt, I love defense. I think defense is great. But what I don't like are one-dimensional players. I don't care about I need your rebounding. I need you to block shots. I also need you to score some points. I need for it to not be 5-on-4 basketball. Like I see that with the Thunder a lot. I see that with the Memphis Grizzlies. There are 5 players on the field. On the court. It shouldn't be 5-on-4 because they know that with a Nerlens Noel, with a Tony Allen, players like that, they're just good defensively. They know they have no offense. So what can they do? On the other side of the ball, they can double team you. And who's going to wind up getting the double teams? Joel Embiid. That's who's going to get the double teams. Like it's not a good matchup. It's really a weak matchup for him because analytically it doesn't work because Noel only gets you and he gets and block shots, which are great. But this is what a lot of us need to realize. This is an analytics-driven league, and the analytics says why he's great rebounding and blocking shots. His greatest weakness is the fact that he can't get a shot on his own unless he's rebounding and ducking the ball in. And that's not a player you really want on the court now that you got a guy like Joel Embiid who wants to take you to the promised land. And I think he needs to work it out with Jalil Okafor. I don't know what they do in the practice facility, but I just find it interesting that a couple weeks ago, Joel Embiid went from saying, "I'm happy to see Jalil Okafor. I want to make it work. I want us to work it out during practice," to now saying, "Nah, forget that. I want Noel on the floor." Like, bruh, 2 weeks you already ready to give up on it? Like 2-3 weeks ago, it hasn't even been a month that y'all been playing together, but you already ready to toss Okafor aside and bring in Nerlens Noel. That just reeks of suspectness to me. But we can agree to disagree. Go ahead, Trey.
To me, I don't think Joel Embiid was saying like toss Jalil at this point. I think he was just he said Nerlens is one of my my best friends on the team, and so he wants to play with them. Like, why if I had if let's say I go to the NBA and I have a best friend and we end up on the same team, I'd be like, hey, put him on the court. I want to play with him. Like, I don't they probably didn't grow up playing together, but like if you have a best friend on the team, you want to play with them because that chemistry is already there. You're going regardless of Nerlens Noel's deficiencies on offense, which I think can be covered up because if you look at because essentially he's a poor man's version of what's his name on the Clippers, DeAndre Jordan. He's a poor man's version of DeAndre Jordan, and clearly that combination of DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin works. So, I mean, a combination of two guys who are best friends on the team, who are both very, very athletic players, can block shots and play defense. I wouldn't mind seeing them on the floor together, to be honest with you. Kylan, you mentioned the idea of, Joel being double teamed. And then if you have Nerlens on the floor, Nerlens is, not a shooter, so it's not like he can kick it out. But if you have both of those, see, the thing is, I'm not saying trade Jalil, and I don't know if at this point, I don't know if we should trade Nerlens. Maybe he is the guy to trade, but I think both of those lineups could potentially work if you have the right players around them. The thing is, with Jalil, the only thing offensively we know he can play. We know his game is there. We know he can post up. We know he's got plenty of moves in his arsenal. And he can. It's not like he's just a post guy. He can do a little bit of dribbles and get to the hole and make the basket. Defensively, he's a liability, which is the opposite of Nerlens Noel. And to me, I think being a defensive liability is a little bit worse than being an offensive liability, in my opinion. Because if you think about it, you had guys like you mentioned why is his name is the guy who played for the Bulls, crazy guy, Dennis Rodman. He was the epitome of an offensive liability. Great defender, hustled, ran when the ball was going out of bounds. He was the one to run and throw it back in bounds, that type of thing. And that's Nerlens Noel. Now he's not at that level of Dennis Rodman, but he's that type of player. And I think the Sixers are actually a little bit unlucky that Nerlens Noel and Jalil play the same position. Because in my opinion, Joel is actually best fit to play the power forward position. And in my opinion, I think you can actually keep Nerlens on the team and have him kind of be like the backup center / power forward, maybe in some smaller lineups. Because I don't think Nerlens is a starting player. That's the thing. I think Nerlens and Joel work good on the floor in certain situations when the matchup on the other side of the floor, like whoever they're playing against works out. As a starter, I don't think but I think you can keep these three guys on the team and have it work. Now, when Ben Simmons come back, do I want to see, Ben Simmons, Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Nerlens Noel, and Joel Embiid, or excuse me, do I want to see, Joel Embiid, Jahlil Okafor, and Nerlens on the court at the same time? No, because that obviously makes no sense. But you can work something out with those players where you have Nerlens coming. I think Nerlens is probably best fit coming off the bench and being an energy guy. And you have Jahlil and Joel being your starter. So I agree that Joel and Jahlil need to work. They need to work things out and figure out how they can play off of each other. Because obviously Joel is maybe he's not the guy yet, but he is going to be the guy. He's the guy of the future. We thought maybe that was Jahlil, but based on what we've seen from Joel, he's the guy of the future. And once Ben Simmons comes back, I think things will open up offensively. Because like, Matt was saying, things are just going to work things out because he's I think Ben Simmons is going to be a very good distributor. But if you're of the mindset, I don't disagree with you, Kyle, in that you can flip Nerlens for a guard. I don't, to be honest with you, I don't think, to me, the funny thing about Jahlil is he's a very good player, but I think his for whatever reason, I think it's because of his defensive liability, the fact that he's somewhat of a defensive liability. I think his trade value is a little bit, less than Nerlens. For Nerlens, you might be able to get Nerlens and like maybe the Lakers pick, you might be able to get something really, really good. But I feel like trading Jahlil just wouldn't work. And plus the organization just is not in a position where they want to trade Jahlil. They feel like Nerlens is, especially based on his comments, last week, he's the guy to trade. But I guess we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't disagree with you guys. I just feel like it's kind of selfish coming from the comment, coming from. I'm glad that we agree on this. That like, that they do need to work it out. But to me, it's just like the timing of your comments. Like a couple weeks ago, you were saying that you and Jahlil need to work out, and I understand that you're best friends here. You want to play with your best friend. LeBron James did it with Dwayne Wade. You want to do all that. But that's one thing if your best friend is a good basketball player. But I can't honestly say that other than defensively, Nerlens Noel is a better player than Jahlil Okafor. To me, I need my two players that I'm going to build around that I spent top picks on. My two past top picks before Ben Simmons. I need y'all on the floor because I'm trying to get a big three, literally a big three going. And offensively, I have Dario Saric coming off the bench. I'll have Robert Covington because let's face it, once Ben Simmons come back, Covington's going on the bench. So I'll have Saric, Covington, and Ilya Silva coming off the bench for my offense. I don't need Nerlens Noel. Like, I lack guard play, right? I know I need a guard, right? I'm not going to trade Saric. I might flip Covington and Noel for two guards. Like, just be honest. And like that's what they need. Like they need their two big men to work it out. This is why I said Joel just needs to work it out. Understand you want to have a best friend and you and your best friend want to play, but it doesn't work well because one, Jahlil Okafor, he must really be dedicated to being a post player, but he needs to work on that jump shot. Even at Duke, he had somewhat of a jump shot. He needs to work and be like a Tim Duncan, get a reliable jump shot, and then he'll be a better player. Because right now he just doesn't have confidence in his jump shot. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to disagree and move on to another topic. But yeah, we can agree to Moving on. Well, it's a win, and we kind of don't want to gloss over the win too much. But before we get there, I want to send our prayers out to Carrie Fisher, aka Princess Leia. She had a heart attack today, but she's in stable condition. Thank God. We're sending our prayers and condolences out to her and her family. Not condolences, prayers out to her family. Condolences to Zaza Gabor, who passed away at 99 years old today. Not today, this week. 2016 claimed another one, 99 years old. Pray for her and her family as well. Condolences to that. And we're just going to move on. For the hockey coverage today, we're not really. I'll pass this over to Matt. Before I do, unfortunately, the Flyers have been on a little bit of a losing skid. I think we probably jinxed them by talking about that win streak so much. But the Flyers have been losing a little bit. And I'm going to toss it over to Matt to answer the question of what's wrong with the Flyers.
Oh man, that's what happens. That's what happens. I know they beat the Caps on Wednesday. I don't know right now. I really don't know right now. As far as their play is concerned, I haven't really been caught. I haven't been catching up with the Flyers because I've been busy. But just trying to keep my ear to the ground. This is a bump in the road. It's a bump in the road. That's all there is to it. I don't think it's too much of it's not so much of a red flag right now, but it's just a bump in the road right now. The fact is, okay, you got off that big winning streak. What are you gonna do? And like I said earlier. Team's gonna be fine. Team's gonna be fine. I have to at least listen to the game, see what's going on. But but the win against the Caps, that was big because Alexander Ovechkin, he's awesome. He's awesome to watch. Actually, very awesome to watch. But to get a win off the Caps, that's not easy. That is not an easy feat to get. But from what I understand, from what I know so far, goaltending is fine. My biggest concern is their defense. That's the biggest thing. My biggest concern is their defense and transition play. Because you can't turn the puck over. You turn the puck over, bad things happen. And next, you want to come into an odd man rush, and that doesn't look good. So my biggest concern with the Flyers right now is their transitional defense, and they have to take care of the puck. They gotta take care of the puck. That's my two biggest concerns because right now the goaltending is starting to stabilize itself. Their offense is fine. I'm not too sure. I can't comment too much on the power play at this point, but those are my two biggest concerns: their defense. Actually, three. Their defense. Their transition game, and pretty much their you have to take care of the puck. That's with any sport. You turn things over, crazy things happen, and hockey's no exception. You turn the puck over, say, in the neutral zone, you got 3-on-2 or 2-on-1 on your hands, and you're screwed. So my thing is simply this is still a young team, and this team's going to playoffs. I think they're going to go playoffs this year. But as far as right now, it's my biggest concern is their it's like I said, the transition and their got to take care of the puck. And as far as the penalty is concerned, I can't speak on that the penalty act, but this got to keep plugging away at the power play basically. So that's all I have to say on that one right now.
All right. All right. That's our hockey coverage for the day. Now we're gonna move on because it is 12:04. Gonna move on to one of our next last topics. Then Trey can have the floor with his final hot take Um, we're gonna move on and talk about our Eagles one more again. And this question is it time for a change in the front office? So is it time for Howie Roseman to get the boot yet? Do you think that with the way our team performed, even though they performed good last year, this is the Howie Roseman team now. So what do you guys think? Go ahead, Matt.
I've thought about this a lot as far as Harry Roseman is concerned in the front office of the Eagles. You know, this part of the bringing of players is their scouting department. How are they scouting their players? How are they evaluating their talent? And from a Howard Roseman standpoint, it's like finally you have the. I'll give him like this. I'll give him one more year. My opinion. I'll give him one more year. You have one more year to get this right. You know we have needs upon needs, not just in the running game, not just in the offensive line. We need receiver to help Carson Wentz, be the best quarterback that he can be in the National Football League. It's no excuse. The Eagles have spent more money than any other team in the last 5-10 years. They spent most money. You can say, well, that's a commitment. No, you can spend as much. So you can spend as much money as you want and still don't get the job done. Okay, I think it's simply this. This is Howie Roseman's last chance to get this right. He has to get this right. If he does not get this right, this is including the draft. You don't get this right, it's time to go because we cannot have another Donovan McNabb with two. I'm trying not to use language here. Two bad receivers with I can't remember who. Todd Pinkston and I forget who the other guy on the other side was, but you can't have that. You already got a physical receiver in Dorial Green Beckham, and right now, and you still, but you need a top flight receiver. And I hope Deshaun Jackson does come back here to play for the Eagles so he can open up the field more. I really hope that. You need a running game. You need to shore up your secondary because frankly Malcolm Jenkins cannot do it all himself. He cannot. The front four is fine. The linebackers, I'm not complaining a lot about it, but as far as personnel is concerned, at this point in time, I really do feel that this is it for Howie Roseman. He has to get this right. He has to get the draft right. He has to get the offseason right. I understand about the cap and everything else. Benny Logan, pay the man. Pay the man. I don't care. Pay the man. But as far you're already paying Fletcher Cox, and he's worth every red cent of that. Benny Logan, pay the man. That's all I gotta say. That's on that end because that front four is very important. But at the same time, you gotta get that front four help. You need like I said, you need some guys in the secondary. They are solid. Some of it may have to be in the draft, but Howie has to get this right. If he does not get this right, and we get the same 6-10, 7-9 result, okay, it's you. Either you will have to be demoted, move to another part of the franchise, or just fire it all together and bring somebody else in who can not really shake things up, but put spots for this team to become a successful franchise and can battle the division and take back the division and hopefully get to a Super Bowl title, something that this town is starving for. So time's yours, gentlemen.
Go ahead, Trey.
Well, the funny thing is that to me, Jeffrey Lurie is not a football guy. He doesn't. To me, I mean, although he's been in the business for I don't know how many years now. He's not really a football guy.
20 years.
Right. So he's been the owner of the Eagles or been involved with the Eagles for 20 years. And Harry Roseman has been our GM for. He was GM from the the beginning of the 2010 season through the end of the 2014 season, the 2014-15 season. Last year he wasn't our GM. Now he's back to being our GM. And I think Harry Roseman did a fair job last offseason with trying to, remove some of the dead weight that we had on our team. I think he did a good job with that. Now, in terms of what he got back for that, the trade for the DeMarco Murray trade, we only got a 4th-round pick. We traded Byron Maxwell and Kiko Alonso. Kiko Alonso is actually, I'm not sure if he got selected, but from last time I checked, he was having a Pro Bowl season, and we didn't really get much back for that. We got the draft picks, but to me, I think Harry Roseman has to prove that that he knows NFL talent. We've got this guy Joe Douglas, who's kind of in charge of player personnel. He's probably going to be doing most of. He'll probably head up, who we're drafting. And I just hope that Jeffrey Lurie isn't trying to be the one who is influencing who we draft and who we don't draft. I think they just need to go out there and draft who is the best player. In the last couple of years, since I think 2010, I guess, when Harry Roseman first became our GM, we've been a team that spent a lot of money on free agents, and it hasn't played out for us. We signed Michael Vick to that $100 million contract, and with the exception of his first year as the full-time starter, or that year where he was an MVP candidate, he faded. He faded off, and he went back to being old Michael Vick. Went back to being injury prone, and he proved, that he's really only a backup at this point. We had the whole dream team year with, Vince Young and Nnamdi Asomugha, and those guys. And we've just spent too much time in trying to invest in free agents who really aren't, worth it. And so we've got to learn that we got to build into the draft. You think about the guys, the people who are the best players on our team are not free agents. They're guys that we drafted. Fletcher Cox, probably the best player on the team. Maybe you can say Carson Wentz is the best player on the team, but he's definitely our best defender. Brandon Graham, he was drafted by the Eagles. Jalen Mills, who was somebody who we can build around, was drafted by us in the 7th round. Jordan Matthews, who was a player we can build around, we drafted him. Another guy we can build around, Wendell Smallwood, we drafted him or signed him ironically, we signed him as a free agent, but essentially we drafted him. I think the only guy who's on the team right now who I believe we drafted Benny Logan. He's a piece that we're going to build around on the defensive line. Two of the guys that we've signed in free agents that are going to be, pieces moving forward are Brandon Brooks and now his name didn't slip my mind. Brandon Brooks and Darren Sproles. Both of those are guys that are free agent signing. And those are good free agent signing, But it's clear that in terms of our talent that we've drafted and the talent that we've signed as free agents, the number of players that we've drafted that are solid players that we can build around on this team, they're all drafted players, not free agents. And hopefully the organization realizes that and can move forward with that with that knowledge that, okay, the way to build a team is a draft, and you kind of add small pieces in free agency. You want to have young talent on your team that's going to develop and get better as the years go on, and you can add veterans during free agency that will help develop your young guys that you've just drafted and provide a sense of stability on your team. So is it time for Howie Roseman to be gone or Jeffrey Lurie to go? Possibly. I don't know about Howie Roseman. Maybe not Howie Roseman. I think Howie Roseman had. I think we got to give Howie Roseman a chance to really show that he can be the GM without Andy Reid. Jeffrey Lurie, on the other hand, he's not going to resign, and there's no one to fire him. So I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with Matt and Trey. I think I'm going to give, just because of where Howie Roseman is. He spent his life with this organization. He's kind of like the Eric Spoelstra of the organization. Like, he worked his way up. I think he's been with the organization like for as long as Lurie's been the owner, so for like 20 years. He just hasn't been GM for that long. It's about 5-6 years. But I think he's had enough time. Like Matt and Trey mentioned, like, his failures over the year in free agency. He did a good job with Andy Reid and Chip Kelly's help drafting some players. But, I think at this point, like, he has sort of like they both have another year. So they have until 2018 to get it together. Like Howie Roseman, this is going to be his second draft. This is in Philadelphia. He needs to get this draft right. Hopefully, one of us will be able to go, if not all of us, to cover it. And maybe we can do a podcast live from it. No promises, but we'll try. He needs to get the scouting department right. He's done a good step towards that by adding Brian Dawkins. Thank you for adding Brian Dawkins, Howie. But, you have one more year. Like, I need you to go out. We need offensive linemen. Go out and find the next Lane Johnsons to replace Peters and Kelsey. You got to get a center, and we got to get a lineman. One thing Dallas got right, got to give the devil his due. They drafted an offensive line, and they knew what they were looking for, and they got a way to get their franchise, their QB of the future, and their running back of the future in the same draft. Couldn't do that. Is beyond me. Like, right now we have our quarterback of the future. It looks like our shutdown corner of the future. But we need to have a good offensive draft. Like, it's been so long since we had a good offensive draft. It's time, man. We spent all that money on the defense, and really, like, the only thing we need to replace on our defense is we need to get a number one cornerback, because Leotis McKelvin isn't it. The priority is re-signing Logan, getting a number one wide receiver, getting a running back, and everything. And I'll close with this. Right now, we're trying to run I said this on Facebook and Twitter on last Sunday, and I'll say it right here again. We're trying to run an Andy Reid / Kansas City Chiefs style offense without a Jamal Charles and a tight end that's on the level of a Travis Kelce. So we need to get the players, whether they be a free agency. Like, the biggest free agent I want them to go after is Alshon Jeffrey, because I want to be able to put Jordan Matthews in the second position or in the slot as a receiver and have him just kill it like he always did. I don't think we need Deshaun Jackson. He's too old and too injury prone. But it'd be nice to have him back. But like, he can't stay healthy. So I'm gonna close it down with this. Like I said, we're trying to run an Andy Reid / pro style West Coast offense with players that are not about that life anymore. Like, our players are older. We need a number one running back. So basically, this is what Howie got to do. He needs to get a number one running back. He needs to get a number one wide receiver and get a shutdown corner all either in the same draft or during free agency. You got to do it. So that's and like I said, I'll give him 1 more year. He'll have until the end of 2017 to get it together. So that's my take on it. Now I'm gonna pass the mic as I introduce this new concept. Do our final hot take. You heard mine last week, which was Russell Westbrook, whether he's a player that can take you all the way or a stat sheet stuffer. So now Trey's going to take the floor. Go ahead, Trey, and close us down.
Yeah, so my little final take, I guess, I'm stealing it from Stephen A. Smith on ESPN First Take. I think it was his final take on Wednesday, I think. Is on so recently George Karl, who is currently, I'm not sure what team is he coaching right now? I can't think of what team he's coaching right now, but he's former coach. What team?
None.
Right. So he's not coaching at the time. But he's former coach of the Denver Nuggets, and he had 3 guys on his teams who are back in the day. He had Kenyon Martin, J.R. Smith, and Carmelo, which is ironic because those 3 guys are like, they're very in terms of personality, they're very diva-like personalities. But there's one comment that he made in a book that George Karl recently wrote. He said, speaking of Kenyon Martin and Carmelo, he says Kenyon and Carmelo carry 2 big burdens, all that money and no father to show them how to act like a man. And when I read that, I was like, wow, George Karl, like those are like, you don't say that. that's a Donald Trump thing to say. Like, wow, like, I mean, it's not like he said, I wish, when I was coach of the Nuggets that that maybe Carmelo and Kenyon could have, maybe they missed out on some opportunities to, to make the playoffs or, play to a higher standard. But, I mean, to say something like this, he also called Carmelo Anthony a true conundrum. He said, speaking of Carmelo, a true conundrum in the 6 years I had him. He was the best offensive player I ever coached. He was also a user of people, addicted to the spotlight, and very unhappy when he had to share it. The interesting thing about this is that I kind of agree with George Karl in the fact that Carmelo wants to go where the money is. But now I think recently Carmelo is changing as a person. He realizes, I'm getting older. The window for a championship is closing. And I've noticed now with the Knicks, I think the Knicks have totally screwed him. And ironically, Phil Jackson, has kind of screwed over Carmelo. And I want Carmelo to win a championship because I love his game. Like, to me, he's like offensively, he's probably one of the greatest offensive players to ever play this game. Like, you don't stop Carmelo. Defensively, sometimes there's a lack of effort. But I mean, on the other end, and I kind of end with this, I think George Karl may be a little bit bitter. He was a beloved coach of the Nuggets for a very long time. But for him to come out and say something like this, they carried, and for him to be, and I don't want to make it, do any race baiting or any type of thing like that, but for him, as a white male, to point out something like he says, Kenyon Martin and Carmelo Anthony carry 2 big burdens, all that money and no father to show them how to act like a man. Like, to me, that was a little harsh, and especially because both of these guys are both black. Like, to point that out and to make it, what's the word I want to use? Like, to point that out and raise that up as the reason why, they didn't reach their full potential together. Like, that's it's out of pocket. And I think J.R. Smith and Kenyon and Carmelo came out later. I mean, during the time, it seemed like, they liked each other, but according to these some things that Kenyon Martin said, the nerve of an awful and coward blank coach, more to come. Kenyon Martin also said on Twitter, I didn't have a father growing up. We all know that. What's George Karl excuse for being a terrible person? George Karl is selfish, unhappy, missable, cowardly person. No wonder he's been fired every place he has coached. The book he is writing is full of lies and deceit. By far the worst coach that I ever played for. Like, I mean, George Karl is like, it's not like let's throw Kenyon Martin out of the picture. Like, he called out one of the top players in the league for not having a father. Like, okay, so if you felt that, and I'll end with this. I feel like I'm a preacher. In conclusion, this is my second conclusion. Like, if you felt like there was opportunity there because they didn't have a true father, they didn't have their biological father in their life, then why didn't you step into that role? As a coach, your job is to help your players reach their full potential on the court, and especially with players at the time, Kenyon Martin, J.R. Smith, and Carmelo were all, very good players in the NBA. Your job is to help them reach their full potential on the court, and especially a player like Carmelo to help him reach his potential off the court. So if you feel that way, George Karl, after, this is, 10, 12 years later, why didn't you step into that role for them? Why now do you write a book and make such heinous, like that? I just don't have any words for him to say something of that, of that brazenness. Yeah, that's my little final take. And I guess I'll send it over to Kylan to sign off.
All right, guys. All right. Yes. That was Trey killing the final take game, getting on his Stephen A. Smith. Once again, I want to thank the brothers for coming on out on the day before. Well, it's Christmas Eve now. When we started, it was December 23rd, but now it's officially Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. During this Christmas Eve, a Merry Christmas. I'd like to thank the brothers. They've been rocking out with me since day one, especially Trey. Matt, he came in a little bit later, but it was great. He's been a great addition. Everybody's been great. We got one more podcast of 2016. That's next week, December 30th. So come, not December 30th. Yeah, December 30th. So come out and check it out. And Lord willing, we'll see you in 2016 and 2017. Like I said, thank you guys so much. Thank you for the support. Whether you watch the show live or later, share it with your friends. Big things are happening in 2017. Once again, I'd like to thank Trey and Matt, and we will have a full podcast and hopefully for that last podcast of 2016, 2017. But to the people who aren't here, who couldn't make it, thank you to Jared. Thank you to Matt, all the Kenan and Kaylin, Taj, thank you all. I hope you all have a good and Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All right. Have a good one. Thank you so much.